Galactic forces burned the human colony. Earth's answer was 800,000 Warbringers. Part 1. The smoke still rose from New Bizin 3 weeks after the attack. Lieutenant Yun Hana watched the footage on her screen for the 100th time. She could not stop watching it. The colony had been beautiful once. Green hills, clean rivers, and cities built by people who wanted a peaceful life among the stars. Now there was nothing but ash and silence. 2.3 million people had lived there. Farmers, teachers, children, and old grandparents who had traveled across space to start fresh. None of them had carried weapons. None of them had threatened anyone. The colony had no military base, no defense fleet. Nothing that could hurt the great powers of the galaxy. The Velthari Dominion had burned it anyway. Hana paused the footage at the moment the first Velthari warship appeared in the sky. It was massive, shaped like a curved blade, and its weapons glowed with purple fire. The colonists had looked up with confusion, not fear. They had not known what was coming. They had never heard of the Velthari before that day. The bombardment lasted 4 hours. The Velthari ships moved in perfect formation, burning section after section of the planet. They did not answer any calls for mercy. They did not respond to the desperate messages asking why this was happening. They simply erased everything and left. Hana closed her eyes and forced herself to breathe. Her younger brother had lived on New Bizin. He had moved there 2 years ago to work as an engineer. She had promised to visit him next spring. Now there was no spring to wait for. There was no brother to visit. She gathered the footage and the data files and walked to the command center. Admiral Park Daeho was waiting there, standing before a wall of screens showing news from across human space. Every screen showed the same images. Burning cities, dead bodies, empty playgrounds covered in gray ash. The Admiral was 62 years old. His hair was white, and his face was lined with decades of service. He had fought in 3 border conflicts and negotiated peace with 4 alien species. He was known as a calm man, a thoughtful man, someone who never acted in anger. But Hana saw something different in his eyes today. Something cold and patient and terrible. "Show me," he said. She transferred the footage to the main screen. The Admiral watched without moving. When it finished, he watched it again. Then a third time. His hands were pressed flat against the table, and Hana noticed they were shaking. "My daughter was visiting New Bizin," he said quietly. She was there to see her friend's new baby. The baby was 3 months old. Hana did not know what to say. She stood in silence while the Admiral stared at the frozen image of burning buildings. "What do we know about the Velthari?" he asked. "They control 37 star systems," Hana said. "Their population is over 200 billion. Their military consists of 12 million active soldiers and 8,000 warships. They are considered a major power in the galactic community. And why did they attack us?" Hana pulled up another file. "Our analysts believe it was territorial. New Bizan was in a region the Velthari consider their sphere of influence. They did not recognize our colony as legitimate. Did they warn us? Did they ask us to leave?" "No, Admiral. No communication at all before the attack." The Admiral nodded slowly. "Send all of this to Ambassador Kang. Tell him to present it to the Galactic Assembly. I want every species in the galaxy to see what the Velthari did." The response from the Galactic Assembly came 3 days later. Ambassador Kang Tae-soo stood before the gathered representatives of 42 spacefaring species and showed them the footage of New Bizan's destruction. He spoke clearly and calmly, presenting evidence and asking for justice. The Velthari ambassador, a tall creature with gray skin and 4 arms, listened with what looked like boredom. When Kang finished speaking, the assembly voted. The result was unanimous. No action would be taken. Humanity was classified as an unregistered expansion species. which meant human colonies outside the Sol system had no protected status. The Velthari had done nothing wrong under galactic law. Perhaps, the Velthari ambassador said, your species should learn its place. The galaxy is not for children who wander where they do not belong. Kang returned to Earth with the news. He delivered his report to the United Council, the governing body of all human territories. The council members listened in silence. Some had tears in their eyes. Others had the same cold look that Hana had seen in Admiral Park's face. We have no allies, Kang said. No one will help us. The galactic powers see us as insignificant. They believe we will accept this and move on. Admiral Park stood up. He was wearing his formal uniform now, with every medal he had ever earned displayed on his chest. I request permission to address the council, he said. The council chair nodded. Park walked to the center of the room. He looked at each council member in turn, and then he began to speak. 2.3 million of our people are dead. They were not soldiers. They were not threats. They were families who wanted to build a life among the stars. The Velthari killed them because they could, because they saw us as weak, because they believed we would do nothing. He paused and let the silence grow heavy. I am asking this council to prove them wrong. I am asking for full military mobilization. I am asking for the activation of the Warbringer Protocol. The Warbringer Protocol had never been used. It was created 50 years ago as a last resort, a way to gather every capable soldier in human space for a single purpose. It meant total commitment. It meant war without compromise. The vote took less than 5 minutes. Every council member raised their hand in favor. Across Earth, across Mars, across the moon, and every station in the solar system, the call went out. 800,000 soldiers answered. They came from every nation, every background, every walk of life. Some were young and had never seen battle. Others were veterans who had put away their uniforms years ago. They all came. They all remembered New BUSAN. When the Velthari ambassador heard about the mobilization, he laughed. His species commanded billions of soldiers and thousands of warships. What could 800,000 humans possibly do? Let them come, he said to his staff. They will learn their lesson quickly. Far away, Admiral Park stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the stars. Somewhere out there, in the cold darkness of space, the Velthari were waiting. They did not know what was coming. They did not understand what they had awakened. They would learn. Galactic forces burned a human colony. Earth's answer was 800,000. Warbringers Part 2. 3 months had passed since the destruction of New Bizin. In that time, the largest military force in human history had gathered at the edge of known space. 800,000 soldiers waited aboard transport ships, carriers, and assault vessels. They had trained every day. They had studied their enemy. They were ready. Captain BK-1 stood on the bridge of the assault carrier, indomitable, and watched the fleet spread out across the darkness. 200 warships of various sizes floated in perfect formation. It was not the largest fleet in the galaxy. It was not even close. But G1 had learned long ago that size was not everything. She was 41 years old and had served in the Space Navy for 18 years. She had seen combat against pirates and hostile alien scouts. She had lost friends and made hard choices. But she had never commanded anything like this. No human ever had. Her communication screen flickered, and the face of Dr. No Yunbai appeared. The military strategist was back on Earth, coordinating the campaign from the Central Command Center. Captain Beak, the final briefing will begin in 10 minutes, Yunbai said. All ship commanders are required to attend. Understood. How are things looking? Yunbai smiled, but there was no warmth in it. The Velthari still think we are joking. Their border patrols have not increased. Their military has not mobilized. They believe 800,000 soldiers is a symbolic gesture. G1 nodded. That was exactly what they wanted the Velthary to believe. Deep in the transport ship Hammer of Soul, Sergeant Major In Sung-ho walked through the training deck and watched his soldiers practice. They moved through combat drills with speed and precision, each team working together like they had trained for years instead of months. The truth was simpler. Humans learned fast when they had a reason to learn. And these soldiers had the best reason in the galaxy. A young private named Keo Byung-ho finished his drill and stood at attention. He was 23 years old, fresh from basic training, and his eyes still held that mix of fear and determination that Sung-ho remembered from his own early days. Sergeant Major. Permission to speak, Byung-ho said. Granted, the other species in the galaxy, they have bigger armies, more ships, better technology. How are we supposed to win? Sung-ho had heard this question many times. He had asked it himself when he was young. Now he knew the answer. Let me tell you something about aliens, he said. Most of them have been fighting wars for thousands of years. They have rules, traditions. They know exactly how battles are supposed to go. Attack here, defend there, retreat when losses reach a certain point. He stepped closer to Byung-ho. We do not fight like that. We adapt, we improvise. We do things that make no sense to them because we are not following their rules. That is our advantage. But they have numbers. Numbers are not everything. A single soldier who refuses to break is worth more than 1,000 who run when things get hard. And we do not run private. Not anymore. Not after what they did. Byung-ho's eyes hardened. He had lost a cousin on New Bizen. Everyone in the fleet had lost someone or knew someone who had. That shared grief had become shared purpose. It burned in every heart like a cold fire that would not go out. In a meeting room aboard the flagship, Admiral Park addressed the senior officers. His face was calm, but his voice carried the weight of everything that had happened. Dr. No will now present the campaign plan, he said. Listen carefully. This is not about conquest. This is not about glory. This is about making the Velthary understand that some lines should never be crossed. Yunbai's hologram appeared in the center of the room. Behind her, a map of Velthary space spread across the display. The Velthary Dominion controls 37 systems, she said. Their homeworld is here, at the center. It would take us 2 years to reach it through normal space. But we are not going to fly in a straight line. The map shifted, showing a curved path through enemy territory. We will strike their military installations, bases, supply depots, shipyards. We will avoid civilian populations entirely. Our goal is to destroy their ability to make war while showing the galaxy that we are not monsters like them. One of the captains raised his hand. The Velthary will respond. They have thousands of warships. Yes, but they are spread across their territory. By the time they concentrate their forces, we will have already moved. We will be faster, more mobile, more unpredictable. We will hit them where they do not expect and disappear before they can respond. Admiral Park spoke again. Some of you may wonder why we are not targeting their cities, why we are not burning their colonies the way they burned ours. He paused and looked at each officer in turn. Because that is not who we are. We are better than them. We will prove it by showing mercy where they showed none. The galaxy is watching. Other species are watching. They need to see that humanity is not just another violent race seeking power. We fight when we must, but we do not become what we fight against. The briefing ended an hour later. Officers returned to their ships. Final preparations began. In a few hours, the fleet would cross into Velthary space for the first time. On the border, A Velthari patrol ship detected the human fleet approaching. The commander sent a report to High Command, asking for instructions. The response came quickly. Observe but do not engage. The humans were probably lost or confused. They would turn back when they realized how far they had come. But Captain Beak G1 had no intention of turning back. She ordered her fleet to full speed, and every ship followed. They did not try to hide. They broadcast their approach on open channels, letting the Velthari know exactly where they were going. It was a message. We are coming. We are not afraid. And we will not stop until you understand what you have done. On distant worlds across the galaxy, other species watched their sensors and news feeds with growing interest. The Velthari were old and powerful. No one challenged them. No one dared. But these humans were different. These humans had nothing left to lose. Sergeant Major Im Sung-ho gathered his soldiers in the transport ship's main hall. They stood in rows, young and old, male and female, all of them wearing the same uniform and the same expression of quiet resolve. In a few hours, we will be at war, he said. Some of us will not come home. That is the truth, and I will not lie to you about it. But I want you to remember something. He looked across the sea of faces. They think numbers are everything. They have never met humans with nothing left to lose. They do not know what we are capable of. They are about to find out. A cheer rose from the soldiers. It was not loud or wild. It was low and steady, like the rumble of thunder before a storm. It was the sound of 800,000 people who had been hurt and were now ready to hurt back. The fleet crossed into Velthari space as the stars watched in silence, far away. In the Velthari capital, the High Command finally requested the full military files on humanity. An analyst compiled the data: human history, human wars, human psychology. He read about their world wars, their revolutions, their ability to endure suffering that would break other species. He brought the report to his superiors. They read it together in a conference room with tall windows overlooking their beautiful city. When they finished, no one spoke for a long time. The room had fallen completely silent. Galactic forces burned a human colony. Earth's answer was 800,000 Warbringers. Part 3, Station Cath 4, was the largest Velthari military outpost on the border. It floated in space like a metal flower, with 6 long arms extending from a central core. 40,000 Velthari soldiers were stationed there. 200 warships guarded its approaches. The Dominion believed it was untouchable. Commander Shin Biora looked at the station through her helmet visor as her shuttle drifted closer. She was leading a team of 200 special operations soldiers on a mission that no one thought was possible. They were going to take the station from the inside. Her team had launched 12 hours ago from the main fleet. They had traveled through an asteroid field that the Velthari considered too dangerous to monitor. Small rocks had scraped against their hull. Larger ones had forced them to change course again and again. 3 shuttles had been lost to collisions. 18 soldiers had died before the fighting even started, but the rest had made it through. "Commander, we have visual on the target," her pilot said. "They have not detected us." Ba nodded. The Velthari were looking in the wrong direction. They expected any attack to come from the open space where their sensors could see everything. They never imagined that humans would be crazy enough to fly through a field of spinning death. On the other side of the station, the main human fleet emerged from faster than light travel. 200 warships faced the Velthari defenders, and the battle began. Private First Class Moon Jae-min watched from the observation deck of his transport ship as weapons fire lit up the darkness. He was 20 years old and had never seen real combat before. The training had been hard, but training was not the same as watching ships explode and knowing that people were dying inside them. His squad leader, a woman named Sergeant Kwan Mira, put a hand on his shoulder. "First time is always the hardest," she said. Just stay close to me. Do your job. We will get through this together." Jamin nodded and gripped his weapon tighter. In 30 minutes, their transport would dock with the station. Then the real fight would begin. Warlord Tethvan commanded the defense of Station Keth 4. He was a veteran of 6 campaigns and had never lost a battle. When the human fleet appeared, he felt something close to amusement. They had brought 200 ships against his 200. Did they think this would be a fair fight? "All ships, engage the enemy," he ordered. "Destroy them quickly. I want to be done with this before the next meal cycle." His ships moved forward, confident and aggressive. The Valkyrie had better weapons, better shields, and centuries more experience in space warfare. This would be over soon, but something strange happened. The human ships did not fight the way they were supposed to fight. They did not hold formation. They did not follow predictable patterns. They scattered and regrouped and attacked from angles that made no tactical sense. One human ship flew directly at a Valkyrie cruiser, weapons blazing. The cruiser destroyed it easily, but in the confusion, 3 more human ships slipped past and struck at the station's outer defenses. Another group drew fire, while a third group circled around and hit the Valkyrie fleet from behind. Teflon watched his display with growing confusion. This was not how wars were fought. This was chaos. "Sir, we have a problem," one of his officers said. "We are detecting multiple hull breaches on the station's lower levels. It appears humans are inside the station." "Impossible. Our sensors would have detected any approach. They came through the asteroid field, sir." Tethvan stared at the officer. No one flew through the Keth asteroid field. The mathematics made survival almost impossible. Yet here they were, somehow inside his station, while his fleet was busy fighting outside. Commander Shin Bozera and her team moved through the station's corridors like ghosts. They had memorized the layout from captured data files. They knew where the power systems were located, where the communication arrays were housed, where the command center sat at the heart of the metal flower. The first Valkyrie guards they encountered did not even have time to raise their weapons. Behura's team was faster, quieter, and more deadly than anything the aliens had expected. They used the station's own structure against its defenders, setting up ambushes and traps that caught the Valkyrie off guard again and again. Private Moon. Jiamin's transport docked at a station arm 30 minutes after Bahura's team had begun their work. The airlock opened, and Jamin stepped into alien territory for the first time in his life. The smell hit him first. Different air, different chemicals, a scent that reminded him of burnt metal and something sweet that he could not identify. Then the sounds came, alarms, distant explosions, the strange clicking language of Valkyrie soldiers shouting orders. Sergeant Quan Mira led the squad forward. They encountered their first enemy at the end of a long corridor. A Valkyrie soldier, tall and gray-skinned with 4 arms, raised a weapon and fired. Jamin reacted without thinking. His training took over. He dropped to one knee, aimed, and pulled the trigger. The Valkyrie fell. He stared at the body for a long moment. He had just killed someone. A living being with thoughts and feelings, and maybe a family waiting somewhere. The weight of it pressed down on his chest like a heavy stone. "Keep moving," Mira said. Her voice was not unkind. "Think about it later. Right now, we have a job to do." Jamin nodded and followed. He would think about it later. He would think about it for the rest of his life. The battle for Station Keth 4 lasted 6 hours. The Valkyrie had estimated that any assault would take at least 6 weeks and cost the attackers far more than they could afford. They were wrong on both counts. Commander Shinbaora reached the command center and found Warlord Tethvan waiting with his personal guards. The fighting there was the hardest of the entire operation. Beora lost 12 soldiers in the final assault. But when it was over, the station belonged to humanity. Tethvan survived. He sat against a wall, wounded but alive, and watched as the small human commander stood over him. "You fight wrong," he said. His voice was weak, but still carried disbelief. "Nothing you did made sense. You sacrificed ships to create openings. You attacked when you should have defended. You walked through an asteroid field that should have killed you all." But Vizora removed her helmet. Her face was covered in sweat and grime, but her eyes were steady. "We fight to win," she said simply. "That is all that matters." Outside the station, the space battle was ending. The human fleet had lost 47 ships. The Valkyrie had lost 112, with the rest retreating in disorder. It was not a perfect victory, but it was a victory that no one in the galaxy had thought possible. The surviving Valkyrie prisoners, including Tethvan, expected execution. That was how the Dominion handled captured enemies. But the humans did something unexpected. They provided medical care. They gave the prisoners food and water. They treated them with dignity and respect. Tethvan did not understand. His people had burned millions of human civilians. Now the humans had every reason for revenge. Yet they showed mercy. Why? He asked the human medic who bandaged his wounds. The medic, a young woman with tired eyes, paused before answering. "Because we are not you," she said. Across the galaxy, other species watched the reports from Keth4 with a mixture of fear and fascination. The humans had defeated a superior force using tactics that broke every rule of conventional warfare. And then they had shown mercy to their enemies. An intercepted Valkyrie transmission spread through intelligence networks everywhere. It was a message from a surviving officer to the high command back home. They do not fight like any species we have cataloged. They fight like they are already dead. And when they win, they offer water to the wounded. I do not understand them. I do not think anyone can understand them. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Captain Beak G1 received the casualty reports. 1,200 human soldiers had died taking the station. She knew she would have to write letters to their families. She knew some of those letters would go to parents who had already lost children on New Bizin, but they had won. The first battle of the war was over, and humanity had proven that it could fight and win against a galactic power. "Admiral," Park's voice came over the fleet communication system. "To all ships and all soldiers, today we showed the galaxy what we are made of. This is only the beginning. We have a long way to go, but we will go together, and we will not stop until justice is done. Rest now. Tomorrow we move forward." Private Moon Jamin sat in his quarters and stared at the wall. He could still see the face of the Valkyrie he had killed. He wondered if the alien had a family. He wondered if someone would mourn him. Then he thought about New Bizin. He thought about the 2.3 million people who had died without warning, without mercy, without a chance to fight back. He closed his eyes and let the grief and the guilt and the anger mix together into something harder, something that would carry him through the battles ahead. The war had truly begun. Galactic forces burned a human colony. Earth's answer was 800,000 Warbringers, Part 4-6. Months had passed since the fall of Station Keth4. In that time, the human fleet had pushed deep into Valkyrie territory, capturing 17 military installations and destroying dozens of warships. The galaxy watched with growing amazement as the impossible continued to happen. General Omyong-sik stood in his command tent on the surface of Valkyrie Prime's second moon. His boots were covered in gray dust, and his uniform showed the wear of months of constant movement. He was 58 years old, and he had never been more tired in his life. A holographic display showed the current state of the campaign. Blue dots marked human positions. Red dots marked Valkyrie forces. 6 months ago, the blue dots had been clustered at the edge of the map. Now they formed a line that reached toward the heart of the Dominion. 12,000 human soldiers had died since the war began. Myung-sik knew the name of every single one. He kept a list in his personal files and read it every night before he tried to sleep. It was his way of honoring their sacrifice. It was also his way of remembering why they were fighting. His aide, Lieutenant Yang So-young, entered the tent with a datapad. "General, the latest intelligence report. The Valkyrie High Command is in chaos. Some are calling for total war. Others are demanding immediate peace negotiations. And the Dominion's population? Confused and frightened, sir. They have never experienced anything like this. Their government told them humans were weak and primitive. Now human soldiers are standing on their moons." Myung-sik nodded slowly. "Make sure our forces continue to avoid civilian areas. I want every Valkyrie citizen to see that we are not here to hurt them. We are here to hurt the people who gave the order to burn New Bizen." On the other side of the moon base, Medic Corporal Choi Yuna was treating a wounded Valkyrie child. The girl, no older than 8 or 9 by human standards, had been caught in crossfire when her family's transport ship flew too close to a battle zone. Human soldiers had found her floating in an escape pod, bleeding from wounds caused by metal fragments. Yuna worked carefully, using medical tools designed for humans on an alien body that was similar but not quite the same. She talked to the child in a soft voice, even though she knew the girl could not understand her words. "You are going to be okay. I promise. I am going to help you." The girl's large eyes watched Yuna with a mix of fear and curiosity. Yuna smiled and continued working. She had treated dozens of Valkyrie wounded since the campaign began. Some of her fellow soldiers did not understand why she bothered. The Valkyrie were the enemy. They had killed millions of innocent people. But Yuna understood something important. The child in front of her had not burned. New Bizen, the farmers and workers and ordinary citizens of the Dominion, had not given that order. They were just people living their lives, the same as humans everywhere. When she finished treating the girl's wounds, a human photographer took a picture. The image showed a human medic holding the hand of a Valkyrie child, both of them covered in dust and blood, but both of them alive. The image spread across the galaxy within hours. It appeared on news feeds from 100 different worlds. Species that had watched humans with suspicion now looked at them with something closer to respect. Observer Keth Marai was a journalist from a neutral world called Stellarchus. Her species had been documenting galactic events for thousands of years. They did not take sides. They only recorded the truth. She had been following the human campaign for 3 months, traveling with a press pass that allowed her access to both sides of the conflict. She had seen the Valkyrie High Command deny reality while their military crumbled. She had seen human soldiers celebrate victories and mourn losses. She had seen things that challenged everything she thought she knew about war. Today, she was interviewing a group of human soldiers in a rest camp behind the front lines. They sat around a fire, eating rations and talking quietly. Keth Marai's translator device converted their words into her language as she recorded everything. "Why are you here?" she asked them. You have traveled so far from your home. You have lost friends. Some of you will not survive. Why do you keep fighting? A soldier named Private First Class Moon Jae-min looked up. He was older now than he had been at Station Keth 4. Not in years, but in the way his eyes held shadows that had not been there before. "They burned our families," he said simply. "We will not burn theirs, but they will remember us." Another soldier, Sergeant Kwan Mira, spoke next. "The galaxy thought we were nothing. They thought we would accept what happened and move on. We are showing them that we do not accept. We do not forget. We do not forgive until justice is served." Keth Marai recorded their words and thought about what she had learned. The humans were strange creatures. They showed mercy to their enemies while still fighting with terrible effectiveness. They mourned their dead while still marching forward. They hated what the Valkyrie had done but refused to become like the Valkyrie in response. She did not fully understand them. She was not sure anyone could dot in the Valkyrie capital. The High Command met in emergency session. The war that they had expected to end in weeks was now approaching its 7th month with no end in sight. Human forces had captured or destroyed most of the Dominion's forward military bases. The fleet that had once seemed unstoppable was now fighting desperately to hold territory. "We must destroy them completely," said Admiral Tethnok. "We must mobilize every ship, every soldier, every weapon we have. We must crush them before they come any closer." "And how many will we lose?" asked High Minister Velsana. "We have already lost more soldiers in this war than in the last 3 conflicts combined. The humans do not break. They do not surrender. Every battle costs us more than it costs them. Then we will use unconventional methods. We will strike at their homeworld. We will burn Earth the way we burned their colony." Silence fell over the room. Everyone knew what that would mean. Earth was far away, deep in human-controlled space, protected by defenses that had been built over decades. An attack on Earth would require committing the entire Valkyrie fleet. If they failed, there would be nothing left to defend the Dominion. But there was another option, one that no Valkyrie wanted to speak aloud. High Minister Velsana finally broke the silence. "We could negotiate. We could offer reparations. We could admit that the attack on the human colony was wrong and try to end this peacefully." "That would be surrender," Tethnok said. "It would be survival," Velsana replied. "The humans are not trying to conquer us. They are trying to punish us. If we give them what they want, they might stop." The debate continued for hours. No decision was reached. The Valkyrie leadership was divided, paralyzed by fear and pride and the growing realization that they had made a terrible mistake. Meanwhile, a Valkyrie assassination team was dispatched to kill Admiral Park Daeho. They believed that removing the human leader would break the enemy's will to fight. The team was good. They slipped past human patrols and made their way to the Admiral's flagship. They got within 50 meters of his quarters before they were detected. The fight was brief and violent. 2 human guards died protecting their commander. All 5 Valkyrie assassins were killed. Admiral Park stood over the bodies and felt something cold settle in his chest. The Valkyrie had tried to murder him instead of facing him in open battle. They had proven once again that they had no honor, no courage, no respect for anything but their own power. He issued a single order to the fleet: "Accelerate the advance." We reached their homeworld in 30 days. The galaxy held its breath. The human fleet was approaching the heart of the Valkyrie Dominion. Soon, the species that had burned New Bizin would face the consequences of their actions. And far away, on 100 different worlds, other alien species watched and wondered. Some were afraid of what the humans might do next. But others, species that had suffered under Valkyrie domination for centuries, watched with something that looked very much like hope. The long march was almost over. The final battle was about to begin. Galactic forces burned a human colony. Earth's answer was 800,000. Warbringers Part 5. The Valkyrie homeworld was beautiful. From orbit, Admiral Park Daeho could see blue oceans, green continents, and clouds that drifted like white silk across the sky. Billions of people lived down there. Families, children, old ones who had never held a weapon in their lives. The human fleet surrounded the planet in a perfect ring. 150 warships, battered and scarred from 7 months of war, but still ready to fight. Every weapon was charged. Every targeting system was locked on the cities below. For the first time in their history, the Valkyrie faced the extinction they had dealt to others. They had burned New Bizin without mercy. Now the same fire waited above their heads. Admiral Park stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the planet turn slowly beneath him. His daughter's face floated in his memory. She had been 32 years old, a teacher who loved children and wrote poetry in her spare time. She had gone to New Bizen to visit a friend's new baby. She had died in the first hour of the bombardment, probably without even knowing what was happening. He had carried her death inside him for 7 months. It was a weight that never got lighter. Some nights, he dreamed of her voice, calling to him from the flames. Some nights, he woke up reaching for his weapon, ready to order the destruction of everything the Velthari had ever built. Now, that moment was here. His finger rested above the button that would begin the end. Millions of lives hung on his decision. The communication screen flickered, and a face appeared. It was High Sovereign Vethkai, the leader of the Velthari Dominion. She was old by Velthari standards, her gray skin wrinkled, and her 4 arms thin with age. Her eyes were red with exhaustion and fear. "Human Admiral," she said. Her voice was formal, but he could hear it shaking. "I am broadcasting on an open channel so that everyone in the galaxy can hear my words. The Velthari Dominion offers unconditional surrender. We will accept any terms you demand. I am begging you, please, show mercy to my people." Park did not respond immediately. He let the silence grow heavy while the weight of the moment pressed down on everyone watching. 2.3 million humans had died on New Bizen. They had been innocent civilians who posed no threat to anyone. The Velthari had killed them without warning, without regret, without even acknowledging that they had done something wrong. Justice demanded payment. The dead demanded vengeance. 800,000 soldiers had crossed the stars to deliver both. But what kind of payment? What kind of vengeance? Park closed his eyes and thought about his daughter again. She had been kind. She had spent her life teaching children to read and write. She had never hurt anyone. If she could speak to him now, what would she say? He knew the answer. He had always known it. He opened his eyes and looked at the Velthari leader. "High Sovereign, I will not burn your world. I will not kill your civilians. I am not like you." He saw a surprise flash across Vethkai's face. Then something else. Relief mixed with shame. "But there will be conditions," Park continued. "First, full reparations to every family that lost someone on New Bizen. The amount will be determined by a neutral committee. Second, all war criminals who ordered or participated in the attack will be surrendered to human custody for trial. Third, your military fleet will be reduced to defensive capabilities only. No more than 50 warships. Fourth, and this is not negotiable." He paused and let his voice grow harder. "You will build a monument on this world. It will stand in your capital city, where every one of your people can see it. And on that monument, you will carve the name of every human who died on New Bizen. 2.3 million names. So that your children and your children's children will remember what your government did. So that no one will ever forget." Vethkai bowed her head. "We accept all conditions. The monument will be built. I will personally oversee its construction." Park cut the communication and turned to his officers. "Stand down all weapons. Signal the fleet. The war is over." The reaction spread across the galaxy like a wave. Species that had expected destruction witnessed mercy instead. News feeds that had prepared for images of burning cities showed human soldiers landing peacefully on the Velthari homeworld. The war criminals were arrested without violence. The reparation negotiations began within days. Ambassador Kang Tae-soo returned to the Galactic Assembly 1 year later. The same representatives who had dismissed humanity's complaint now watched him with very different expressions. 1 year ago, this assembly told us that humanity had no protected status, Kang said. You told us that our dead did not matter. You told us to learn our place. He looked around the room slowly. We learned that the galaxy respects strength. We learned that justice must be taken, not given. We learned that we can defeat powers that have ruled for thousands of years. And we learned that we can do all of this without becoming monsters. He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Humanity requests full membership and protected status in the Galactic Assembly. I expect there will be no objections. There were none. The vote was unanimous. On the Valtteri homeworld, the monument was completed 6 months after the war ended. It stood in the center of the capital city, a tower of black stone that reached toward the sky. 2.3 million names were carved into its surface, starting at the base and spiraling upward until they disappeared into the clouds. Admiral Park Daeho visited on the day of its dedication. He walked alone through the crowds of Valtteri citizens who stepped aside silently as he passed. Some looked at him with fear. Others looked at him with something closer to respect. He reached the base of the monument and found his daughter's name. It was carved into the stone at eye level, as if someone had known he would come looking for it. Park, me young, teacher, poet, beloved, daughter. He touched the carved letters with his fingertips. The stone was cold and smooth, polished by alien hands that had followed human specifications exactly. I am sorry I could not save you, he whispered. I am sorry for everything. Behind him, Valtteri citizens watched in silence. Some of them had lost family members too, soldiers who had died fighting the human advance. Some of them had lost friends in the chaos and confusion of war, but none of them spoke. None of them protested. They understood, perhaps for the first time, the true cost of what their government had done. The galaxy had learned a lesson that day. Humans were not the strongest species. They were not the most advanced or the most numerous. But they were something else. Something that the ancient powers had forgotten or never understood. Humans protected what they loved. They fought for what they believed in. They crossed the stars to seek justice for the innocent. And when they won, they did not become what they fought against. Admiral Park turned away from the monument and walked back to the shuttle that would take him home. The war was over. The dead were remembered. The galaxy had changed as his shuttle rose into the sky. He looked down at the monument one last time. 2.3 million names, carved in stone, standing forever in the heart of enemy territory. The Valtteri would remember. The galaxy would remember. And humanity would never forget. They learned that day what the galaxy had never understood. Humans do not fight to conquer. They fight to protect. And when you take what they protect, they will cross the stars to make you remember.